My mom secretly sold my inheritance to finance my sister's boutique. I found out about it when I tried to buy my first house, and the deed was already in their name. Now she's begging me to stop what I started. Hi, I'm James, 29. Quiet guy, software engineer, not the kind to air family drama online, but this one's been eating me alive, and I need to let it out. What happened turned my entire world upside down. I didn't grow up poor. We weren't rich either, just a solid, middle-class family in the Atlanta suburbs. Dad was a history teacher, the kind of guy who quoted World War II trivia in casual conversation, and Mom ran a small accounting firm out of our home office. My younger sister, Vanessa, was always the lively one. A bit impulsive, a bit dramatic, but she had a spark people gravitated toward. I was the opposite. Quiet. Focused. I got a coding book for Christmas at 13 and never looked back. Things shifted when Dad passed away. He died of a heart attack in 2018. 62 years old, no warning. Just didn't wake up one morning. It hit us all hard, but I think I wore it differently. I processed it in spreadsheets, took over handling bills, helped Mom sort out the estate, made sure she was okay. And she was, or at least she seemed that way. She told me Dad had set up a trust in my name, that it included a small commercial property he inherited from his father, a worn-down corner building near the Beltline. Not much to look at, but sitting in a part of town that was gentrifying fast. It's not liquid, she said, but it'll be yours when you're ready. I didn't ask too many questions. She had the paperwork, she was the accountant, and I trusted her. God, that sounds stupid now. Fast forward to last year, 2024. I've been saving for a house. Nothing flashy, just a 2-bedroom fixer-upper on the east side with enough space to have an office and maybe a dog. I'd gotten pre-approved. Talked to a realtor. Ran all the numbers. And then my realtor called me back, voice tight. James, there's an issue with the property title. I blinked. What kind of issue? The commercial lot listed under your name. It's already been sold. For years ago. I thought she had the wrong file. Or maybe some kind of clerical error. That property wasn't supposed to be sold. It was part of the trust. My trust. The one Mom promised was mine when I turned 25. I hung up, confused, stomach sinking. That night, I drove to her house. Vanessa was there, of course. She still lived at home, even at 26, floating between jobs until she found her passion. I walked in and found them in the kitchen, sipping wine, laughing like nothing in the world had ever gone sideways. Hey, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I just got off the phone with my realtor. Something weird came up. Mom blinked at me innocently. What's wrong, sweetheart? That commercial property, Dad's old building? The one that was supposed to be part of my inheritance? It's gone. Sold. In 2020. The year shifted. Vanessa stopped laughing. Mom's smile faltered for half a second. James, she said slowly, you have to understand, we were in a really tight spot. I stared at her. We. She set the wine glass down. Vanessa had just started her business. She had this opportunity, this beautiful storefront, amazing foot traffic, and she needed capital. The bank wouldn't lend to her without collateral, and, well, the building was just sitting there. I was speechless. So you sold it? I said. Without telling me? It was in my name, she said quickly. Technically. For tax reasons. Your father and I never fully transferred it to you. We were going to, eventually. But I needed to help her. I turned to Vanessa. You knew. She looked away. It was supposed to be temporary. We were going to pay it back. The store just hasn't done as well as we hoped. The boutique. Of course. Vanessa's little dream shop where she sold imported handbags and soy candles and handmade jewelry. I'd never even walked in, because it always felt like a vanity project more than a business. A place built on hashtags and aesthetic vibes instead of an actual business model. And you didn't think I deserved to know? I asked, voice cracking. It wasn't like that, Mom said. I didn't think you'd understand. You were always so practical. Vanessa needed a chance. She took my chance. That shut them both up. I walked out. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept hearing my dad's voice in my head, soft, methodical, always planning. He was the one who believed in security. He saved every receipt, documented every asset. We don't gamble with the future, he'd tell me. But someone had. And it wasn't me. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I wasn't sure what I wanted, just to understand if I had any legal ground to stand on. And that's when things started unraveling even faster. The building wasn't just sold. It was transferred. Title search records showed a private sale to a holding company, which turned out to be owned by my mother. She hadn't even sold it to a third party. She sold it to herself, then leased it to my sister's boutique at $1 per year to help her qualify for a business loan. And when the business faltered, she quietly offloaded the building for a quick sale to cover the losses. By the time I found out, the asset was gone. The trust was empty. And the one thing my father had left specifically for me, his son, was funneled through a paper trail so twisted I had to print it all out on my living room floor just to follow it. That was the moment I stopped grieving the loss and started getting angry. I spent the next few days buried in documents. My lawyer, a guy named Ryan who looked too young to be that sharp, sent over everything: property records, transfer logs, tax filings. And there it was, clear as daylight. The building my dad had quietly invested in during the early 2000s had passed through 3 shell companies, each linked back to my mother's firm, before being liquidated just last year. All signed. All legal. All without my name. Ryan broke it down in one sentence I'll never forget. Morally, this is theft. Legally, it's airtight. Turns out, my parents never finalized the transfer into my name. It had been written into the intent of the trust, but never executed. No notarized deed. No signature. No official assignment of ownership. So while my dad had wanted me to inherit it, my mom owned it. And she sold it to herself using a holding company she managed personally. It was genius. And it was brutal. I didn't talk to her for 2 weeks. She left voicemails. Sent texts. Everything from "please come by," "we need to talk," to "you don't understand what Vanessa was going through." One even said, "You're acting like money matters more than family." That one nearly made me drive over there and lose it. But I didn't. Instead, I requested a meeting with all 3 of us. Me, her, and Vanessa. In Ryan's office. If they wanted to explain themselves, they could do it in front of someone who dealt in contracts and cold facts. They agreed. Vanessa came in late, sunglasses on like she was hungover. Mom followed her, clutching her purse like a lifeline. She sat down across from me at the glass table and gave me a practiced smile. "James," she said, "we didn't mean for it to feel like a betrayal." I kept my voice even. "Then what was it supposed to feel like?" Mom exhaled. "Your father left behind a lot of pressure. The business, the accounts, the property. It was too much for me to manage alone. And Vanessa, she needed something for herself. Something to build on. So you gave her my future?" "You were doing fine," she snapped. "You had your job, your apartment. You weren't even using the building." "I wasn't using it because you told me it was being held in trust. For me." Vanessa finally spoke, voice low. "We didn't think it would matter. I thought I could turn things around before you noticed." I turned to her. "How's that going?" She looked away. Ryan leaned forward. "James isn't here to make you feel bad. He's here because he's considering civil action." There was a clear verbal agreement between him and his parents, witnessed by other family members. At minimum, we're talking about potential misrepresentation, breach of fiduciary duty, and bad faith handling of a trust asset. Mom paled. "You're suing us?" "I haven't decided," I said, "but I'm documenting everything." She looked stunned. Vanessa looked angry. "How dare I?" That was the expression on her face. Mom tried again. "James, please. This would tear the family apart." "No," I said, standing. "You already did that." A week later, I filed notice of intent to pursue legal mediation. It wasn't a lawsuit yet, but it was a warning shot. A formal request for records. Financial statements. The full paper trail of where the money from the sale went. That's when things got really quiet. 2 days after the filing, I got a message from one of my dad's old friends, Mr. Langston, a retired lawyer who used to fish with him every other weekend. He told me they'd spoken about the trust shortly before Dad passed. That my dad had mentioned wanting to officially transfer the building into my name, and had even drafted the papers, then delayed signing them, waiting for a better tax year. I told him not to wait, Langston said. Guess now we know why. He offered to write a statement, and my lawyer took it immediately. It wouldn't undo the transfer, but it painted a picture. And in legal disputes, the picture sometimes matters more than the fine print. Then, one night, 3 weeks into this, there was a knock on my door. It was Vanessa. Alone. No makeup. No sunglasses. She stood on my porch like someone who hadn't slept in days. "I need to talk," she said. I let her in. She didn't sit. Just paced. Then she stopped and blurted it out. "The boutique's bankrupt. We're out of money. Mom didn't tell you, but the buyer for the building backed out. She's in debt, James. Like serious debt. She took out a loan against the sale before it cleared, and now she's stuck." I stared at her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she's scared. And because I know you." You'll go through with the lawsuit. You'll bury us. I'm asking you not to. Something about the way she said it made me pause. Not because I felt bad, but because it didn't make sense. If the buyer backed out? Wait, I said. When did they pull out? She looked up, confused. What? The buyer. When did they back out? She blinked. I don't know. Maybe 6 weeks ago. My stomach dropped. 6 weeks ago was before I ever started asking questions. Before the realtor flagged the title. Before I confronted them. Which meant they sold the building under my nose. The deal collapsed. And they just hoped I'd never find out. And now that I had, they needed me to stay quiet. Not because they were sorry. Because they were screwed. Vanessa stood in my living room, shifting from foot to foot, waiting for me to say something. Maybe she expected me to break down. To cave. To throw my hands up and say, fine, we're family, let's fix this together. But I didn't. I just asked her one question. Did Dad know? She froze. What? When you sold the building? When you pitched the idea to Mom, did Dad know about any of it? Or did you wait until after he was gone? Her eyes dropped to the floor. He never would have said yes. That was all I needed. There it was. The confirmation I hadn't dared ask for before. My father, the man who spent his whole life building slowly, steadily, never taking shortcuts, would never have agreed to this. They waited until he was dead to gut the legacy he left behind. And now they were coming to me, the guy they shut out of the plan, the one they lied to, begging for help because their scheme had collapsed. I took a deep breath and said, I'm not bailing you out. Vanessa's head snapped up. James, come on. You don't understand what Mom is dealing with. She chose to deal with it by stealing from me. That's not my problem to fix. It was a bad decision, she said quickly, stepping toward me. But it wasn't malicious. She thought she was helping me. She thought it would all work out, Al. But it didn't. She swallowed. No. And now she's in debt? Vanessa nodded. She used a bridge loan against the building's projected sale price. Interest is piling up. She's barely making payments. If you file a lawsuit, she could lose the house. Everything. Good, I said, before I could stop myself. Vanessa went quiet. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the person in front of her. But I didn't flinch. I'd spent weeks choking down my fury, sitting in rooms full of papers and debt and things my dad worked for, all rebranded under someone else's name. This wasn't revenge. This was balance. The next day, I went to see Mom. She opened the door slowly. No makeup. Her eyes looked sunken, like she'd aged 5 years since the last time I saw her. James, she said. I was hoping you'd come. I stepped inside. The house looked smaller than I remembered. We sat in the living room. She offered me tea, and I declined. There was no point in pretending this was normal. I know what I did was wrong, she said after a long pause. I know I should have told you, and I should have handled the trust better. But you have to believe me, I didn't do it to hurt you. I don't care why you did it, I said quietly. I care that you did. She looked down at her hands. Vanessa needed help. I needed trust. A long silence passed between us. Then she said something that stopped me cold. Your father didn't trust her with money. That's why the trust was in my name. I stared at her. What? He didn't want her near it. He told me not to let her touch it. Said it should go to you because you'd use it wisely. Because you don't ask for anything. She looked like she might cry. But after he died, I thought he was being too hard on her. She'd changed. She was trying. I thought maybe if I helped her once, really helped her, she'd grow up. So you gambled his legacy. She nodded. And lost. Tears finally slipped down her face. I don't know what to do anymore. Sell the house, I said. She blinked at me. What? You stole from me to fund a failing business. The buyer backed out. You're in debt. Sell the house. Pay it off. This is our home. I said. You made your choice. She looked at me, stunned. Like she expected me to swoop in and save her. Like the guilt trip was supposed to land. But it didn't. I stood up. You and Vanessa spent 5 years hiding this from me. I spent 5 minutes deciding I'm done. As I reached the door, she said the one thing she hadn't yet. Do you hate me? I turned around. No, I said. But I don't trust you. And I don't think I ever will again. That night, I filed the lawsuit. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I needed a record. A declaration. A line in the sand that said, this wasn't okay. You don't get to quietly undo someone else's future and call it love. My lawyer added a motion for financial discovery. If they had anything else, accounts, assets, loans under my name, I wanted to know. That was when we found the letter. A scanned document from 2020, buried in the back end of my mom's business records. It was a letter from my dad, dated 3 months before he died. It read, "I understand that the trust must be signed over. I've spoken with James about it, and he agrees. I will finalize the transfer next quarter once the medical bills are settled. The property is for James, as we discussed. No further action should be taken without his written consent. Signed, in pen, Thomas Blake." And at the bottom of the page, a note in different handwriting. Just one line. "Keep this off the books until Vanessa signs her lease." It wasn't signed, but I recognized the handwriting. It was my mother's. I stared at the scanned letter on Ryan's laptop like it had just cracked the floor beneath me. My dad did try to make it official. He was planning to sign the property over to me after handling some medical bills. He wasn't indecisive. He wasn't dragging his feet. He was deliberate, careful, just like he always had been. And then, 3 months later, he died. Before he could finalize it. Before he could stop what happened next. And under his clear, written instruction, there was that note. That quiet, damning line in my mother's handwriting. "Keep this off the books until Vanessa signs her lease." Not check with James. Not wait until Tom finalizes the transfer. Just keep it off the books. Ryan sat back and said nothing, letting it sink in. I was stunned. Not because of what it meant legally. Honestly, it was shaky evidence in court, but because of what it meant personally. She knew. She saw the letter, saw his intention, and she buried it. Also, Vanessa could chase her boutique fantasy. I didn't confront her again. What would be the point? You only ask someone why they betrayed you when you still believe there's an answer that might help you sleep at night. I didn't believe that anymore. Instead, we pushed forward with the case. The records gave us leverage. Enough to file for misappropriation of trust-adjacent assets, even if the original trust had never been legally finalized. Combined with Langston's testimony and the handwritten letter, Ryan said we had a compelling claim, at least enough to force a settlement. And they settled, not because they were sorry, because they had no choice. We reached an agreement, a financial repayment in structured installments over 6 years. It wouldn't equal the market value of the original building, but it was something, and it would legally bar them from touching anything else that had been part of my father's estate. That was what mattered to me, putting a lock on what was left. The last time I saw Vanessa was outside the courthouse. She didn't look at me as we walked past each other. She didn't say a word. And honestly, I didn't need her to. She'd already said enough when she stood by and let our mom do this. When she took that lease, knowing full well it came at the cost of someone else's future. When she let me walk blind into adulthood, thinking I had something behind me, something built for me, when in reality it had already been sold off in silence. It's been 6 months since then. Mom still sends emails sometimes. Short ones. "Hope you're well. Thinking of you." I don't reply. Not because I hate her. Because I don't owe her my peace anymore. That's something I had to rebuild from scratch. Like everything else. I bought a house 2 months ago. Not the one I planned on. Not the neighborhood I dreamed of. But it's mine. A 2-bedroom with a tiny office and a backyard that needs work. It's enough. More than enough. Now that I know what was almost taken from me. And 1 week ago, I opened a letter from my dad's lawyer. It was postmarked late. Delayed in processing. It had been addressed to me, but never forwarded after Dad passed. Inside was a typed page, and 1 line handwritten at the bottom. The typed part said this: "James, this letter is to document our understanding that the transfer of the Ponce building is to take place no later than Q2 of this fiscal year. Your father has verbally confirmed this and intends to proceed as soon as necessary filings are complete." And below that, in my dad's handwriting, "You earned this. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." That was the first time I let myself cry. Because even though I lost the building, even though I lost my family in the process, I finally got the truth back. And somehow, that was the one thing they couldn't take.